One issue, 2 points of view. Agora.
As the dust settles after the European elections, the focus has shifted to the makeup of the next European Commission. The issue of who should lead it has deepened divisions between the right and left, both politicians and writers like David Rennie of The Economist and Jean Cafemer of Libération, the left-leaning French daily. José Manuel Barroso has the backing of the dominant centre-right and would seem on course for another tenure as president. But the left is manoeuvring to keep him out and is forging alliances with other groups to come up with a credible rival. In Brussels, the horse trading has begun. David Rennie and Jean Cafemer give Euronews their thoughts.
For the first time in the history of the European Union, I would say the European Parliament might oppose the reappointment of José Manuel Barroso. How? Effectively, the Conservatives and the Christian Democrats of the PPE have the majority. It's a relative majority. We can easily imagine a no front. The European Socialist Party has just said it'll oppose the reappointment of Barroso. The Greens are going to oppose him. Some among the Liberal group. And also, I would say, around 100 Eurosceptic or even anti-European deputies, just to put a little life into this half-asleep chamber, could vote against Barroso. And then we could see an almost unprecedented arm wrestle between the European Council and the European Parliament. What gives political power to the Parliament, such as it has, is that it can say nothing will pass without our agreement. And for me, that's the game in the coming weeks.
Je suis étonné que vous pouvez imaginer que
I'm astonished, really, that you can imagine that that would be a good idea for the Parliament, for the turnout that's falling with every election, with the European Council representing 27 national governments, which are carefully chosen with a much higher turnout. Even with all their big faults, for me, the 27 national leaders, they have an infinitely greater democratic right to select the Commission President than a front cobbled together with the left and right and whatever. Really, that would lack responsibility.
The problem with Barroso is that he's not really supported by the governments. I mean, when you talk to government leaders or heads of state, no one really defends him. No one is there hailing his achievements. Barroso in reality is someone who's done favours for the member states. No one's going to oppose his reappointment because he's done nothing to displease the Conservative governments that have nominated him. And no one thinks he's someone who's going to restart the EU machine, who's going to undertake initiatives, who's going to force the hand of member states in going forward. And so from that point of view, I can see why he would please the British. But perhaps for the future of Europe, Barroso is not the best choice.
What you can't stand about Barroso is that, and this is the main reason I like him, is that for him, Europe and the member states are not on opposite sides. He thinks Europe can work through the member states.
No, I believe that the union we're in is not a union of states and a union of peoples, as we're led to believe. We are primarily simply a union of states. The fact that we aren't a union of peoples is manifest by the turnout figures, even if they vary from country to country. We can't say that the turnout is falling in every country. It's going up in some, it's steady in others. It's very much linked to local circumstances. But globally, 40% turnout shows that the European public sphere doesn't exist. So effectively, I don't think the member states and the union are opposed. It's not a case of the nasty states against the union. Anyway,
apart from Great Britain.
Apart from Great Britain, I admit it's tempting to say that.
Well, we're waiting for the European Council. We hear, and maybe you know better than me, that France, for example, is haggling under the table for an informal decision, political, I don't know what exactly, to secure for the French Commissioner a key post that could directly affect the economic crisis. It's supposed to be Michel Barnier or someone else.
I would say that this haggling is taking place and that it's been going on for several weeks. But I would say these under-the-table deals, as you said, will not include the voters, the citizens of Europe, because that's not how it's done. It should be done in public. I mean, the European Council should be able to hear, audition a certain number of candidates. Why not audition Mr. Barroso and also Mr. Monti? What programme would Mr. Monti offer? What programme is Mr. Barroso going to offer? No one knows at the moment. Up to now, he hasn't said what he would do in the next 5 years. He's going to be nominated behind a curtain, and only then will we see a socialist Barroso, a conservative Barroso, or a liberal Barroso emerge. We don't know. Why not also interview Mr. Verhofstadt, who'll be among the candidates?
In public?
In public, absolutely, so we can hear these people.
For me, the Commission President isn't a Prime Minister because the European Commission isn't a government. Because it's a...
That's the heart of the matter.
Exactly. That's why, in defending your position all the time, in defending your position, you give yourself away, because you're showing yourself to be a federalist, in which the European Commission would become the government of Europe. And that...
A quasi-government. For you, it's a secretariat.
Yes, it's a political secretariat. It's a kind of hybrid. It doesn't shock me that it should serve the member states.
So, at the end of the day, we can see that the British vision has triumphed at last. Barroso is the ideal man to lead the Secretariat of the Council of Ministers, and the fact that no member state will oppose Barroso shows that you finally won.
It's more subtle than that. I think that the French are always tempted to see everything as a Franco-German-British game, the triangle of power. And it's true, isn't it, that in Brussels, during the French presidency, there were a lot of smaller member states who weren't so happy. They felt they were being steamrollered by Mr. Sarkozy. And that's the tradition. It's the European Commission defending them. And Mr. Barroso, perhaps you won't agree, but it's very significant that Mr. Barroso is Portuguese. He's from a little country on the periphery of Europe. And that counts for something. He detests the steamroller effect. He detests this idea of a two-speed Europe. For me, it's important that Barroso has a vision of Europe, 27 unified states, and that's important.
For me, the appointment, perhaps the election of the Commission President, is fundamental because it's the crucial moment to raise a number of vexing economic questions. If we don't have the debate now, here and now, we will never have it. There's a real risk of explosion for the European Union, for the single market. That would hurt everyone. On that, I think we can agree, The Economist and Liberation.